Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Litchfield County Sports Program here on a chilly Wednesday afternoon, I would have to say. I think we've gone from winter to summer to spring in like the last week and a half. Joined as always by my good friend, Mr. Wilson. It's impossible to know how to dress right now, my friend. Short, shirt, coat.
Yeah, a little clammy and drizzly at times, and then it goes up to 80, then it's back down to 60, so welcome to New England,
A little
right?
boom action last night. You guys get it down here too?
A lot of booms when I
Thunderstorm?
was going to sleep. I don't know how much rain we actually got, but a lot of thunder booms scared the cats. But
Kind of wakes us up. We had I was at a place you knew well from days back when, was Dick's Restaurant in Torrington. They had their scholarship dinner last night, and our good friend R.J. Ponatowski called at the last moment, sent me an email that he needed a photographer. So I actually went out and did some work last night.
There you go.
Parentheses work, right?
it's okay to take a night off now and then. I know the scholarship is good, but
Yeah.
it's okay to take a day off now.
And the other thing was, we were sitting with our good friend Mike Conway and his wife. You're sitting there with both Colangelos, Joe and Brooke. Brooke is our good friend Michael's uncle, and Joe is his dad. So some of the best people in Torrington. They gave away over $23,000 to scholarships last night. It is the biggest scholarship fund, in Torrington. But as we were going outside to take the obligatory pictures, Mother Nature started to throw a couple of bolts in our direction. And some of the guys are getting a little up there, so they might not run as fast off the golf course. I was thinking back to Caddyshack with the priest for a moment there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
See what happens. And speaking of priests and golf course, how's your golf game?
It hasn't been real good. I'd like to blame it on my golf clubs, which were stolen a couple of weeks ago, but that's another story. But the problem with my golf game is, other than normal, is that I don't pick up clubs from the time my golf league ends up at Fairview on Thursday nights till the next year. I really don't. So when I pick them up, I haven't picked them up in 8 months, and it's, I'm about a bogey golfer when I'm playing decent, 43, 44, 45.
Per hole, that's how I do it.
Lately I've been up to 46, 47. I'm using a new
The
set
wind,
of club.
the sun.
I'm not sure where the ball's going and things like that. So it's not where I hope it is as I get a few more rounds. I mean, I've played 27 holes since last August. So every Thursday we go out there with high hopes, and
Right.
the first one starts cranking bark off the tree, and or on the ground, kills a few birds. But it's fair. But
ground ball is short. Here we go.
Not where
Right?
it needs to be.
There we go.
And,
I can't even tell you about golf because we did basketball this weekend because we'll start after we got off the air last Wednesday. Friday night I went down to St. Peter's St. Francis Church with our good friend Tony Torina, and they had a 3-point and a free throw shooting contest. And you probably read where I took an over on the 3-point line, 0 for 15.
No place to go but up.
You would think that by accident, close your eyes, one of those things
Yeah, I
would
would
go
guess
in.
a couple might go in.
Perhaps. But what you do is, like you in golf, you start talking to the ball. You got it on your hand. You're like, it's right there. I hit the front of the rim, the back of the rim, the side of each rim, the back of each backboard, and
Well, like any
nothing.
game, it's a mental thing. Particularly
Right.
have to miss a couple.
Right.
I remember that happened to me my senior year in high school. I was a pretty good foul shooter my junior year. Started missing some senior year. Just played heck with my mind. I ended up shooting them one-handed, and it gets
amazing.
mental after a while.
Right there. I mean, especially at the free throw line. I think I was 6 for 15. That's Shaq-like. Maybe a little better than Shaq. Who knows, right?
Yeah. There's a few. Well,
And,
look, you got to the warning track at Houston. You can't have everything. You can't have everything.
I can't go. The more embarrassing thing I think was the next day. We went back up in the afternoon at 3 to 6 with my daughter Jillian and my granddaughter who was 10. Well, she made 3 for 10 on the 3-pointers. Had not shot a basketball in her entire life. Just likes to play sports and the rest of it. Went out there. And one of the best things for me is that before she started to shoot, Tony was coaching her.
Right.
That's like Tony coaching Jonathan. And he probably has over time on something. In basketball, maybe. But, the look in her eyes, because Tony relaxes people so well. You know what I mean? Just bend your knees, have some fun, and the rest of it. And I watch her. She's bending her knees and having some fun. And after she made her first one, it goes over to us, listen, you could throw the ball out the window, against the door, anywhere you want, and you still did better than your grandfather. So we had some fun there. And they raised a good deal of money for St. Peter's and St. Francis. Father Jim Sullivan will be taking off for Maryland on a 350-mile bike ride on the 29th. And Matt Lauer with NBC is
Right.
cranking 250. Now he's got a Caravan with him. He's probably got 3 SUVs. You know what I mean? So I'm giving Father Sullivan a little credit here for cranking it out for 350 on the way
You're
down.
telling me like Matt is like camping in a Cadillac? Is that kind of why you a Cadillac?
Thinking, might not be, I don't know if anybody was meeting him on the side of the road, but a great job by Father Sullivan taking care of that. And on Friday night, you had a great honor with your mom, right? You had a dinner?
Very proud of my mom, always have been very proud. She was elected the Rotary Club Citizen of the Year in Thomaston, which is about as prestigious award as
Sure.
you can get down there.
Congratulations, Mom.
While we were growing up, my mom was always civically involved. First woman on the Board of Finance, 12 years on the Board of Education, Zoning Board of Appeals, Town Moderator, all volunteer positions, all, as you know, particularly on Board of Education and Board of Finance, that come with another side to it.
Yep.
You get heavily criticized. And she'd still be doing it if her ears were a little better. But anyways, it was a great night. She was very pleased.
Where'd they hold it?
It was at the Grand Oak Villa over in Oakville in Watertown.
Nice, great place.
Yeah, except for the 2 accordion guys in the next room, but different story. But, she kind of thought, you nominate people for that, and they've always elected good people, but she kind of thought it had passed her by. How many people are going to be there? I'm 83 years old and this and that. My mom looks like 20 years younger, but they had a nice turnout, and it was really nice. My sister came up for Florida. All 5 of us kids were together, which is, can't remember the last time
That's
we
pretty
were
rare.
together.
That's hard.
Well, it is with one in Florida. The 3 or 4 of us are all in Connecticut, but 4 of us are not. We're all in Connecticut, and sometimes get together. But it was a great night. Got to see my sister. Got to spend some time with her, and hey, things went well.
It's all about family. That's what it is. And then on Sunday, we went over to Fusions Park for the first annual Torrington alumni baseball game. They want to get the numbers up a little bit more next year than they had this year. They had 14 alumni come back, so they kind of did 9 guys in the field, 3 batters who kind of rotated. Now, our good friend Pat Richardson, the head coach of the Torrington Raiders, was one of the 3. He's with Cody Lemieux and Rich Scott. Rich Scott still plays, he's a 91 alum.
Well, somebody had asked me the other day about Rich Scott. They said, yeah, Rich Scott is playing with us. Do you know him now? That was right at the heart of my time at the Register Citizen.
Okay.
And we called Rich Scott the natural.
Rich
Scott was a ball player, and I understand he can still play. So
he was launching them to near that warning track, and the trouble was that meant our good friend Pat was up every other second, because neither guy, at one point, I did a little MC work up in the booth for him, and I asked the guys to take a couple of pitches so the coach could get his breath, because, it's not as easy as it looks going out there running. I could take that from Saturday and from Friday of still trying to make my first 3-pointer, in history. But good afternoon, there at Fusions Park. We did a little t-shirt toss and, had some fun with that. So we hope for a better turnout. Next year. We talked to some people already, about it. The Varsity Alumni Club kind of underwrote it with the insurance. Our good friend Paul Denza and Paulie O'Haron, they do a great job, with that. So, it was a busy weekend. 3-hour Monopoly game between Sky Elizabeth and my wife, and both still exist.
Did you score in that one?
No, sir. I was fortunately at the game and came back midstream. I did a little refereeing at some point during the middle, because how Monopoly games, families have broken apart over Monopoly games before,
And they can go on forever.
Oh, there is, yeah. There was actually a New England board is what they were playing with, which was kind of unique.
See, I like playing Monopoly because I got some relatives that cheat. So, I don't I'm not saying which side of the family, but, it's about who can cheat the
Stones are being thrown. Yeah. Hey, can you go get me something to drink? Ping, ping, ping.
All of a sudden, they're back up to 50,000.
Who wants to be the banker could sometimes be debated, on the pop culture end of it, David Letterman retires tonight. Last show. Are you a Letterman fan?
Well, I've never been a tremendously big late night fan, frankly.
We're either
you
working
gotta
or
get up
asleep.
at 5 in the morning.
Yep.
We're either working. I don't stay up till 1 o'clock at night from 11:30 to 1. However, through the years, you grow to appreciate Johnny Carson. If you go on and look at his funniest moments, it's good. But I've had great appreciation for David Letterman. I think he's great, and it's kind of just another sign that we're getting older.
Okay.
But he leaves certainly. He had his niche, and it was a big one, and he leaves a big void when he walks off tonight.
It was
And I didn't even look to see who are his final guests.
I don't even know yet. I don't know that. Not sure.
I didn't
Probably
look either,
somebody
but-
knows. I mean,
But,
I'm sure
you
it's
know,
out there.
the
Right?
kind of poignant moments when, you know, like when Carson left, when Oprah went off for the last time.
Yep.
But certainly David Letterman has been, you know, part of the late night scene and everything else, in the top 10 list and everything
Oh, no
that's become
question,
part of
yeah.
our culture. So, great run for him, and, you know, you wish him well, and little hole in the late night television.
Yeah, you know, and he had Norm Macdonald on the other day. He had Adam Sandler, both of them who made their debuts as
Yep.
comedy, and look at where they've gone since then. So many. I think if he wasn't married, he would marry Julia Roberts because he's had her on like 150 times, and you
I
know,
love Julia Roberts.
and Oprah was on just the other night and stuff. And there was that feud there for a few years, which I think they just
I
had
did,
more
you know,
fun
I did
with.
catch a little bit. I didn't have, you know, and again, I'm not usually up at 11:30,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but I did catch a little bit of Oprah.
DVR, bro. That's the only way I catch any of this.
I don't even.
DVR.
Yeah.
Carolyn.
That's about as close as I could get. I can't even play CDs on my TV now. If I want to watch anything, I got to put them on my computer, which is, sometimes I want to sit on the couch, not at my desk.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
But that
so-
you can put it on your computer is rather impressive because your technical skills are going very
Yes,
high now,
you can
right?
open it up, put it in, push it, and all of a sudden it comes on. It's very technological.
It's like these cameras we got in front of me, point and shoot. That's how we do
Yeah.
it. So it's and I think I had Tom Hanks on during the week. This week he had end of last week had George Clooney on, and George Clooney actually handcuffed himself to Letterman, which was hysterical for the whole show. So everything is about the hand, and then the following night they kept the bit going. When they both came out for the monologue, handcuffed, as in, you know, I spent the night with you. But yeah, no, you're right. I think a lot of them had mentioned like it, and we had a lot of different references after September 11th, 2001, when television went back on, when we weren't sure in the sports world when we were supposed to go back and play sports and relax and have any kind of enjoyment, and on comedy shows too, like Letterman, and I think he really. You know, kind of set the tone for folks. And I think that's sometimes where you need a Carson, even a Leno. When Leno retired,
Well, I think
it's kind of the same
familiarity
thing.
breeds comfort, and they both handled it extremely well. Well, Carson was obviously gone, but Letterman handled it well, and Jay Leno, I think all the talk show hosts at the time handled it well.
It can't be
Particularly
business
Letterman.
as usual
Right,
completely, but
right.
you still have to kind of guide, you know, people back in. Can you imagine? I mean, they were showing some of the skits that they did, you know, outside on the streets of New York. I mean, just, you know, John McEnroe shooting tennis balls at
Well,
a
he
building
used to
across
throw
the
like
way.
tubs of thing into Jello or something. I mean, Letterman did some really crazy stuff, and they all have their favorite guests and whatever.
That's true.
And,
Yeah. I'll throw in the paint and all the
They'll throw the
watermelons
paint,
off
yeah,
the.
they're
Oh
throwing
my
watermelons,
goodness.
and he doesn't do as much. At least when I've seen him, as much of that. But
Yeah.
he was always a little bit offbeat and in a nice alternative to whoever you wanted to watch it with him and Jay.
Right.
So
I watched a clip the other day of, he was on the other day, Bob Dylan, you know, 30 years ago when he was on there, singing away as it had to be.
I like to watch clips every once in a while when I have nothing to do, which is never, but when Don Rickles is on.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah.
whether he's on, you know, Letterman or whatever, and he did a couple funny things on Letterman and Carson and this
Oh,
and that.
he was just on last week, and you know, obviously he's getting on, but he was talking with Howard Stern. And forget about that, with Howard Stern's
But
next
you know
to
what?
Don
There's
Rickles.
actually a clip on YouTube of Rickles on Howard Stern's show. They get along very well.
Yeah.
Howard Stern likes him.
Yeah.
They get along very well.
And the thing was, Letterman was kind of like the oddball. He'd be like, I'll get to you in a minute. And it was pure Rickles, even though he's probably late 80s by
Oh,
now,
Don
I would
Rickles is
think.
almost 90. I think
Is he
he's
really?
89.
So it was great to see him out, you know, there and having some fun.
He's on all those old, like the Friars Roast, Dean Martin, the Friars Roast. He is an extremely funny man.
You see some of the roasts nowadays, Rick, and all they do is cuss a lot and call people horrible names. Back then, they took time to really zing you, but they didn't have to curse
Well,
while
if
they
you
were
look
doing
at
it.
some of those, who was on the dais of a lot of those? You know, I've seen some with Muhammad Ali, but it was Bob Hope, it was John Wayne, it was Don Rickles,
Right,
it was
right.
a bunch of Jimmy Stewart's
Walter
on a lot,
Matthau,
Ronald
that's
Reagan's
it.
on
Yeah,
a couple
yeah,
of them before he was president. Jack Klugman's on some. It was a who's who of how it was, and Red Buttons, and it was funny.
Right, right. And it wasn't, you know, you see some of them nowadays, the personal attacks are even, you can't even find the belt, they're so far below. Those guys did it, I think, you know, very well. But I think they worked their craft harder. You know, it's for comedy, not just shock value and the rest of it. So on a sports talk show, we're talking about, other stuff, but like Letterman talks about.
Well, look,
life
Francesca
things.
gets on the movies once in a while, Joe D and his new show gets on, we're entitled to talk a little pop culture.
I like Joe D in the afternoon, 3 to 5 on TIC.
Well, I think
does
one
a
of the
great
nice
job.
things is also that WTIC also has, prior to that, from 9 until 3, has political programming, basically what it is. Jim Vicevich is on from 9 to 12, and then Rush comes on. So it's a nice turn.
It's a little balanced.
It used to be, before John Rowland did whatever John Rowland does. It was church and state with Pastor Will, like
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Some parts of that was interesting, but again, a lot of that stuff drifted into the political. So it's nice to kind of have some sports.
And I think when we saw Joe D'Ambrosio the last election cycle, I remember we were at a UConn men's game that he was, calling, and then on the ride home, you're hearing him on air, talk with politicians until
Is there
1 o'clock in
anything
the
Joe
morning.
D doesn't do?
I don't think
because
so, and he does it so well.
Because he's on television.
Yep.
He's the voice of UConn. You turn on TIC, he's on there. I mean, Joe D's about everywhere you turn.
And it's funny for people who see people, we continue to see it. Very down to earth, know who you are, no big timing, just, hey, how you guys doing? Because at the same time, we know he's doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
There's a couple hours in the day he's sleeping, we're just not exactly, sure when. So we are running into the end of the season rather quickly. Thomaston softball still hasn't lost since May 15th of 2014, and who knows when they might lose again.
Well, that was interesting yesterday. It was May 15th, is that the last time they lost?
Lost that 5-4 game to Northwestern in 9 innings.
Was that May 15th? Yeah, that's about
Yeah.
But I really didn't go to see Thomaston play yesterday. I actually went up to Wamogo to see my son play. Thomaston had a JV game up there. And I look at the schedule, and Thomaston's playing at Wamogo, so I'm kind of in between the two fields. But at this point, I don't know what we say, because it's not so much they won the title, and I wrote about this morning. It's not so much that they won the title. They had already clinched a tie for the title, no playoff in the Berkshire League.
Yep.
So they have 3 games left. They were going to win one of those 3 games, probably 2. This was, I know they have Terryville and then maybe Lewis Mills.
Yeah, Lewis Mills is here next week.
Yeah,
On the
Tuesday.
schedule it says 19. Is there one I'm missing?
Yeah, they're only playing 19. They only played 18 last year. Don't ask.
19. Okay.
But
yep.
and we've been watching this, and I think it's part of what makes this story so interesting, because we've been watching this for a while now. I mean, I'm watching the game. They hadn't played particularly well, and I will compliment. It's nice to see Wamogo back. It's Serena Zamitis is a very good pitcher for a sophomore. She throws well. They scored 2 runs, and I think it was the bottom of the 3rd. They took a 2-1 lead. She threw very well. I didn't think Thomaston was playing particularly well. They had a couple bobbles here and there. They weren't particularly hitting well. And we get to the 7th inning, and you say they're down 2-1. First batter makes an out. So I've got my tweet ready to go. Wamogo hands Thomaston first loss and everything else. Well, you always,
and you know better.
I think they get, if I remember right. Well, you should know better, but you say to yourself, it just can't happen every time. And you get a bobble, reaches first. Danielle Jeunesse puts down a perfect bunt. So now you got first and second. Next kid strikes out, so you got 2 outs. So you're thinking, all right, it's not going to happen this time. Julia Romanello, outfielder, very good field hockey player too, gets up. She's got 2 strikes on her. So it's top of the 7th, 2 outs, 2 strikes, down 1.
You went there.
And you just keep shaking your head, because what does she do? She hits a 2-run triple. How many times can you go to the well and keep doing this? The day before they're down 2 in the 8th inning, and they come up with 3 in the bottom of the inning, and the last one with 2 outs. And okay, it happens once in a while.
Right.
We've been watching this happen for 2 years now,
We have,
particularly in softball.
Same
It's almost unfathomable to watch it time after time after time. Now, like Gino told us with UConn and their win streak, all things will come to an end, but I'm just baffled. I mean, I guess we should know our lesson, but you just
and it's
can't
funny.
kill them. I mean, I don't know.
You try to relate back to either pro teams or high school teams that you remember a group of kids that went through 2 sports and continually down to the last out, you never counted them out. I have a hard time really coming up with that many. I mean, the Mets in '86, but that was for like a game.
Well,
for
that's
an
what I'm
inning.
saying, I think that's
You know,
part of
this
it.
is years.
It's not just happened once or twice, it happens time after time after time.
Right.
And, you know, the title grab is off the charts here. But the way that they do it, I mean, I'm just, you know, you sit there shaking your head. And I've always wondered, you know, people that read the stories or read in the paper, Thomaston come, I can't imagine what's going through their mind, because they gotta be asking the same question. How is it that blankety blank team keeps being able to do this? It's just, it's something I've never seen before. It's unbelievable.
Yep. And I know Terryville they handled pretty well the first time, and then, but I think Mills was like a 15-8 game the first time, if I remember. That was a...
Yeah, I think, you know, certainly, you know, we talk about method, but moving on as far as the Thomaston girls, I think they got their hands full coming to tournament.
Yep.
I mean, there are,
You got your normal suspects, you got
well, you got your normal suspects. There
are.
are times when
Yep.
they're a little, you know, like I said, they had 5 errors against 901. They booted a couple yesterday. You know, Wamogo certainly didn't rack. Morgan Sanson's a top flight pitcher, but they got their bat on the ball. So, you know, I think they got some real challenges coming to tournament, but, you know, as we know now, you just see what happens,
right?
because with that group of kids, you just don't.
Surprise up in Torrington yesterday with Watertown coming back with 2 runs to beat.
Well, I was
Torrington
very surprised,
at
because
home.
every time, and I have not seen Torrington all year, I mean, but every time I pick up the paper, you know, it's Ali Dubois pitching a 2-hitter, a 3-hitter,
Yep.
and they're winning. So I was surprised. I don't know any of the elements of the game, but I was surprised that anybody scored 5 runs off her, first of all.
Right, right.
And, you know, but it's a hiccup.
They played top-ranked Southington earlier in the year, and they lost 2-0, but on errors,
Yeah.
so they were right in that game. You know, so it was interesting the other day. I stopped over and they were playing Naugatuck, 13-0, you know, win. But both of the UConn coaches, the head coach and the assistant coach, were sitting in lawn chairs right behind home plate. Now Marissa Morris is going to UConn next year. Now the only thing saving her was that her back was to her coaches. Because can you imagine the pressure? I mean, your college coach, who have already committed, you know, that you're going to be going, and Dubois was pitching, and that's pressure. You're staring at, you know, some places you'd love to play in your future. And even though they ended up winning 13-0, there was a couple balls that went a little more awry than normal. You know what I mean? And this is the end of the first year of Dubois being the pitcher all year.
Well, I haven't seen Dubois pitch, and I know just watching, it's a tough road on Division I, and I don't know where she fits in, because particularly as a sophomore, where she fits in with the Ashley Gillette's, the Rayanne Geffords, the people that would be considered
She's probably third.
the top pitchers
Yep.
in the state. But, you know, and I don't know who UConn was looking at. You know, at this point, I'd be maybe a little surprised if they were looking at her only because she's a sophomore. But I mean, that's good recruiting, I guess. But it'll be interesting to see what happens.
It's good stuff, yeah. We're running about 7 minutes left in the program, so I want to get to a couple of things. We have the first annual Litchfield County Sports All Torrington High School Team Banquet coming up on Thursday, June 11th, up at Greenwoods Country Club from 6 until 8 o'clock at night. Mayor Eleanor Carbone, Michelle Cook are going to be there to give out certificates to the kids. We're making the kids some polos. We wanted to step into a void that we saw in the northwest corner, which we've done a lot with, in which kids are not necessarily honored the way they should. We're having 2 kids from every sport from this entire school year, so the fall, the winter, and the spring. Had to meet certain criteria. It doesn't have to be the best athlete. You've got to have a good GPA, and you've got to be involved in the community. So it's not just I'm the stud and I miss half of my classes. So we kind of tried to make it so that not just everybody would make it, and not every team is sending me 2 players because they didn't feel that they were worthwhile. But we'll probably honor around 40 kids. Like I said, our good friend Robbie up at Bogey is going to put a little spread out for us, and you know, we'll kind of honor the kids. Jerry Carbone and RJ will be there actually with representatives from the Unified program, because they've done a terrific job, you know, with that over the years. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to make them a little polo shirt with a little LCS emblem and their name on it, so that they can remember. And it's something we want to do every year, you know, where we become the voice of, you know, who's honoring these deserved athletes out there. And then also Ray Tangley, our good friend from Wolcott Tech, who I will go see tonight as the Wildcats boys volleyball team. I mean, every year, doing him and Jim Pepper, they just put together, you know, a pretty terrific
Mighty
team.
Pep.
Lewis Mills tonight. Always an interesting battle. They lost up at Lewis Mills earlier this year, but as Ray had said, it was more of the walking on to the Lewis Mills court, because back in the day when they were in the Berkshire League, that probably is not something that they won all the time. We're putting together an all-area team that Ray has helped me with. We'll do the 10 Berkshire League teams with help from the coaches in each of the schools who will nominate the players. We're also going to include Torrington Christian Academy, the Foreman School, and Wolcott Tech, and kind of put together, a team. This will not be a banquet dinner, but it will be something that we recognize all the kids with. Because as we have seen, if we look at our good friends at the Waterbury Republican, there's so many schools in their circulation, they cannot honor every single kid the way they want to, or else that's how they would get
somewhere
over.
around 35 schools in their district.
Right.
So
you and I are going to try to take care of a couple. So we try to do that. So we're looking forward to having that come up over the next couple of weeks. Torrington baseball finishes the regular season tomorrow against Watertown, 4-7 in their last 11 after an 8-0 start. Tough time. They went up to Dodd Stadium and got beat up pretty good up in Norwich by Naugatuck, which is nice to go up to where the I think that's the Connecticut Tigers.
when you look
play
at the
up there.
4-7, because you've seen them more than I saw them against Thomas in a game we both enjoyed, which they won in the bottom of the 7th. Is it pitching? Is that what's holding them back?
And pitching, untimely defense. If you're not winning 8-0, this time of the year you got to win a 2-1 game.
Well, it's a lot of pressure on your bats, and we know they can swing the bats, particularly Dom Sabia, and but that puts a lot of pressure on other elements of your game if you're not scoring 8 or 9 runs a game.
Right, and this time of the year what's coming down. You're going to face the best pitchers that everybody else has. So the NBL tournament will be held at Fusions Park in Torrington this year, which is good. I believe that starts on Saturday. So we'll be up there to take a look at what's going on there. What else you got going on in the Wilson world?
Well, I think as far as the local sports go, the Berkshire League has no playoffs, and both Thomaston teams have won titles there, so there's nothing much going in there. Like you talked about the boys tournament being at Fusnitch, I have in recent years covered the girls tournament, and I'm kind of looking forward to this one next week simply because, when you've got Seymour, which has lost 2 out of its last 3.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to Oxford, then they lost to West Hill.
Is that Oxford game over officially?
Oh, geez. 45
You missed
strikeouts.
dinner, you
Ashley,
missed
Gillette, Ray, and Gefford. But they've lost 2 out of 3. One thing about Seymour is they don't have quite the bats that they've had in recent years.
Okay.
They're pretty solid defensively, and Gefford's a good chucker, obviously.
Yeah.
But you got them and you got Oxford, and I think the way Dubois throws, that's a...
Could be an interesting trio
it could be really interesting. So we've got that coming up.
What is it about Gillette? She's just that overpowering?
She throws very hard, and all these kids have stuff on the ball now. It's not just throwing the ball 100 miles an hour. She gave up about 6 or 7 hits to Seymour. A couple of them were bunts, but she doesn't walk anybody. She throws darn hard.
Mm-hmm.
She hits spots, and she's got some drops and some things like that.
Okay.
And so terrific. So I think in the sports world, as far as that goes. That's going. I'm just trying to wind down. There's a lot of the end of school here in the last 3 weeks or whatever.
Countdown days for school there. So, the state tournament, the rankings will come out on the 29th, a week from Friday. So we'll see where everybody shakes out. And then you're right, it's that couple of weeks in which you get the running shoes on and get kicking. And then from there we settle into summertime. And
it's a busy time of year, as it always is when we start crowning and see. Like we wrote during the winter, wanted a ride to Mohegan. Well, who's going to give us a ride to Stratford's, to Luca Field, or wherever else they're playing this year?
Absolutely.
Is there somebody out there in the local area, whether it's baseball or, we had the 2 Thomaston teams getting to the finals last year.
That was a fun day. Baseball in the morning.
Well, it always is, and again, it doesn't have to be Thomaston. That makes it fun, but somebody local that'll give us a ride and do things like that, and we will see.
You got speaking of Mohegan, we just saw today that Florida State has signed to play UConn in the Hall of Fame game up there on December 11th. When we're going to basketball, pretty quick. But before
you got the nice
football
pickup
will
from
be here.
Seton Hall, and
there's the women are playing up there, but the men have also.
Women are playing up there. Okay.
The men have picked up some good, 5th-year players, so they don't have to sit.
I heard, and I don't know how reliable it is. I heard the women will be pretty good this year.
I think Indianapolis is a shot. There's a good
You know,
reference out
again,
there. You want to
I
check
don't
it out,
know,
right?
but, you know, it's, you know.
Well, listen, we want to thank Rich Rivera, who's got to get out there on the practice field so that the Golden Bears can continue their dominance as they look to make some noise in the playoffs. This is Tim Gaffney for Litchfield County Sports, signing off. Mr. Wilson.
Aloha.